Picture this. It's late October and your neighbor just installed a 12-foot skeleton in their front yard. Your local Target has an entire aisle dedicated to candy corn varieties you didn't know existed. And somewhere in America, someone is dropping $300 on a dog costume that looks like a hot dog. Welcome to Halloween in America, folks, where we've somehow turned a Celtic harvest festival into a multi-billion-dollar shopping extravaganza that rivals some countries' entire economies. But here's what most people don't realize. Halloween isn't just big business anymore. It's become one of the most significant retail events of the year, second only to the winter holidays in terms of consumer spending. We're talking about an industry that generates more revenue than the entire box office earnings of summer blockbusters. And the really fascinating part, the amount Americans spend on Halloween varies wildly depending on which state you call home. Have you ever wondered why your coworker in California seems to have an elaborate Halloween display that could compete with theme park attractions, while your cousin in Montana keeps it simple with a carved pumpkin and a bowl of candy? It's not just personal preference. There are actual economic, cultural, and demographic forces at play that make some states Halloween spending powerhouses, while others take a more modest approach. In 2025, Americans are projected to spend over $12 billion on Halloween. Yes, you read that right. Billion with a B. That's enough money to buy approximately 48 billion fun-sized Snickers bars, or if you prefer, enough to give every American about $36 to spend on costumes, decorations, and candy. But that national average tells only part of the story. The real intrigue lies in the state-by-state breakdown, where spending patterns reveal surprising truths about American culture, economics, and our collective obsession with all things spooky. So buckle up, because we're about to take a deep dive into the economics of America's favorite haunted holiday. Trust me, what we're about to uncover might just change how you see those Halloween decorations next year. Let's start with the heavy hitters, the states where Halloween isn't just a holiday. It's practically a competitive sport. And if you're thinking California tops this list, well, you'd be absolutely right. But wait, this is just the beginning of a much more interesting story. California leads the nation in total Halloween spending, with residents collectively dropping an estimated $1.2 billion on the holiday in 2025. Now, before you say, well, California has the most people, so of course they spend the most, hold that thought. We're going to look at per capita spending too, and that's where things get really interesting. California's per capita spending sits at around $31 per person, which actually puts it in the middle of the pack when you adjust for population. What makes California special isn't just how much they spend in total, it's how they spend it. California leads the nation in costume spending, particularly for adults. That's right. Grown-ups are driving Halloween spending in the Golden State more than kids are. We're talking elaborate cosplay-level outfits, high-end decorations that would make a Hollywood set designer jealous, and themed parties that require their own event planners. In trendy neighborhoods of Los Angeles and San Francisco, Halloween has evolved into something resembling a month-long cultural festival. Some Californians start planning their costumes in July, coordinating group themes with friends like they're organizing a wedding party. But here's what few people know. California's Halloween economy has a unique characteristic. The state spends disproportionately more on premium Halloween products, organic candy, ethically sourced decorations, and sustainable costumes. It's very on brand for a state that also leads in organic food sales and Tesla ownership. You'll find Halloween stores in California offering $85 eco-friendly ghost decorations made from reclaimed materials, and yes, people are buying them. Now let's swing over to the East Coast, where New York comes in second with approximately $700 million in total Halloween spending. New York's Halloween culture is intense but different from California's. In New York City specifically, Halloween is dominated by epic street parties, most notably the Village Halloween Parade, which attracts over 2 million spectators and 50,000 costume participants annually. This isn't your suburban trick-or-treat experience. This is Halloween as performance art. New Yorkers spend an average of $34 per person on Halloween, slightly above the national average. But what's really fascinating is the urban-rural split within the state. New York City residents spend nearly double what upstate New Yorkers spend, reflecting the different ways Halloween is celebrated in dense urban environments versus suburban and rural communities. In Manhattan, you might spend $200 on a costume for a single party. In rural upstate New York, that same $200 might cover Halloween for your entire extended family. Texas rounds out the top three with around $650 million in total spending, and this is where American Halloween culture shows its true diversity. Texas has some of the most elaborate residential Halloween displays in the country, with homeowners transforming their properties into walk-through haunted experiences. We're talking fog machines, animatronic monsters, professional-grade lighting, and sound systems that pump spooky soundtracks loud enough to hear from 3 blocks away. What if I told you that some Texas neighborhoods have become legitimate tourist attractions during Halloween? It's true. Areas like Shenandoah in the Houston suburbs attract thousands of visitors who drive through specifically to see the Halloween displays. Some homeowners report spending $3,000 to $5,000 annually just on their outdoor decorations, and they consider it money well spent. This is Texas, after all, where go big or go home isn't just a saying, it's a lifestyle. But the real surprise comes when we look at per capita spending leaders, because the states that spend the most per person aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest populations. Delaware, Connecticut, and New Jersey consistently rank among the highest per capita spenders, with residents in these states averaging $38 to $42 per person on Halloween. These are affluent states with high population density, lots of families with young children, and strong trick-or-treat traditions. Connecticut deserves special mention here because it represents something interesting about American Halloween culture. The state has one of the highest percentages of homeowners who participate in trick-or-treating, with neighborhoods that go all out to create festive experiences. In towns like West Hartford and Fairfield, Halloween is a community event that brings together neighbors who might otherwise barely interact. Houses compete for the best decorations, parents organize costume parades, and local businesses sponsor Halloween events. This social cohesion translates directly into higher spending. When everyone on your block is decorating, you feel motivated to keep up. Have you ever wondered why the Northeast tends to spend more on Halloween than other regions? Part of it is cultural. Halloween has deeper roots in northeastern states, with their colonial history and autumn harvest traditions. But there's also a practical component, the weather. Halloween falls right in that perfect sweet spot of autumn weather in the Northeast. Cool enough to wear costumes comfortably, but not so cold that you need a winter coat over your elaborate outfit. This makes outdoor decorating more enjoyable and trick-or-treating more pleasant, which in turn encourages more participation and spending. And this is where the most interesting part begins. When we map Halloween spending against demographic and economic data, patterns emerge that reveal much more than just who likes to buy candy corn. High Halloween spending correlates with specific factors: median household income, home ownership rates, percentage of families with children under 12, and interestingly, local spending on other holidays. States that go big on Halloween also tend to go big on Christmas, birthday parties, and other celebratory spending. Halloween isn't an isolated phenomenon. It's part of a broader culture of celebration spending. The top spending states also share another characteristic. They have thriving Halloween retail infrastructure. California, New York, and Texas all have multiple year-round Halloween and costume stores, not just pop-up shops that appear in September. This permanent retail presence normalizes Halloween spending and makes it easier for consumers to invest in higher quality costumes and decorations. When you can visit a 10,000 square foot Halloween superstore in July, you're more likely to plan ahead and spend more than someone whose only option is a temporary Spirit Halloween store that opens 6 weeks before October 31st. But wait, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the ghost in the graveyard. regional competition. States with high Halloween spending often have neighboring states with equally high spending, creating regional Halloween arms races. When Connecticut residents see what Rhode Islanders are doing with their Halloween displays, they up their game. When New Jersey families see New York City's Halloween extravagance, they feel inspired or pressured to elevate their own celebrations. This competitive dynamic drives spending upward in ways that isolated high-spending states don't experience. So who exactly is winning the Halloween spending race? If we're measuring by total dollars, California is your champion. If we're measuring by per capita spending, small affluent northeastern states take the crown. But if we're measuring by Halloween enthusiasm and cultural impact, you could make a strong argument for any of the top 10 states. Because here's the thing. High spending doesn't always equal the most genuine Halloween spirit. Sometimes it just means you have more disposable income and access to spirit Halloween stores. Now that we've covered the big spenders, let's talk about everyone else. Because the majority of American states fall somewhere in the middle of the Halloween spending spectrum. And this is where the data gets really interesting, because it reveals just how much regional culture, economics, and demographics shape our holiday spending habits. The national average for Halloween spending per person in 2025 hovers around $30. That might not sound like much, but multiply it by the American population and you get those mind-boggling billion-dollar figures we mentioned earlier. States like Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Illinois cluster right around this national average, spending between $28 and $33 per person. These states represent mainstream American Halloween culture, enthusiastic participation without the extremes we see in coastal states. Take Ohio, for example. With approximately $340 million in total Halloween spending, Ohio represents something we might call Heartland Halloween. Spending here focuses on the basics: candy for trick-or-treaters, a few jack-o'-lanterns, maybe some string lights shaped like ghosts, and costumes that often come from discount retailers or are homemade. This isn't a value judgment, it's just a different approach to the holiday. Ohio families are just as excited about Halloween as families in California. They're just working with different budgets and different cultural expectations. But here's what few people know about these middle ground states. They often have the highest rate of participation in traditional trick-or-treating. While coastal states have diversified Halloween celebrations with adult parties, bar crawls, and alternative events, states in the Midwest and parts of the South maintain strong door-to-door trick-or-treating traditions. In suburban Ohio neighborhoods, you might see 70% or more of houses participating in candy distribution on Halloween night. Compare that to urban areas in high-spending states where apartment living and alternative celebrations have reduced traditional trick-or-treating participation to 40% or less of residences. Michigan presents an interesting case study in regional spending variation. The Detroit metropolitan area spends considerably more on Halloween than rural Upper Peninsula communities, but not just because of urban-rural economic differences. Detroit has seen a Halloween revitalization in recent years, with downtown events, bar district costume parties, and community organizations sponsoring family-friendly Halloween activities. This infrastructure of organized events drives spending in ways that purely residential Halloween celebrations don't. When there's a costume contest with cash prizes at your local brewery, suddenly that $80 costume seems like an investment rather than an expense. Wait. This is just the beginning of understanding regional differences. Let's shift our focus to the South, where Halloween spending patterns reveal fascinating cultural dynamics. Southern states generally spend less per capita on Halloween than northeastern or western states, but the reasons why are more complex than simple economics. States like Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana average between $22 and $26 per person on Halloween spending, noticeably below the national average. Some of this reflects lower median household incomes in these states. But there's also a cultural component. In parts of the South, Halloween competes with fall harvest festivals, church festivals, and other autumn events that draw attention and spending away from Halloween specifically. Some communities in the Bible Belt have traditionally viewed Halloween with skepticism, preferring fall festival celebrations that emphasize harvest themes over ghosts and ghouls. However, and this is crucial, Southern Halloween culture is changing rapidly. Younger generations in Southern states are embracing Halloween with increasing enthusiasm, and spending in these states has grown faster over the past decade than in most other regions. Georgia, for instance, has seen a 35% increase in per capita Halloween spending since 2015, one of the fastest growth rates in the nation. Atlanta's Halloween culture now rivals many northeastern cities, with elaborate parties, haunted attractions, and neighborhood decoration competitions. What if I told you that Florida represents a complete anomaly in regional spending patterns? Despite being a southern state geographically, Florida's Halloween spending, $34 per capita, aligns more with northeastern states than its southern neighbors. Why? Theme parks. Florida is home to some of the most elaborate Halloween events in the world. Universal's Halloween Horror Nights and Disney's not-so-scary Halloween Party attract millions of visitors who spend hundreds of dollars on tickets alone. This tourism economy elevates Halloween's profile throughout the state, encouraging Florida residents to embrace the holiday more enthusiastically than they might otherwise. The theme park effect extends beyond just event attendance. Florida residents who work in tourism and entertainment industries bring that professional-level event planning mentality to their home Halloween celebrations. You'll find Florida neighborhoods with lighting and decorating schemes that would impress professional haunted house designers, created by people who spend their workdays creating magical experiences for tourists. When creating atmosphere is your job, you can't help but bring those skills home. Now let's talk about the lower spending states, because they tell us just as much about American culture as the high spenders do. States like Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, and Vermont consistently rank among the lowest in per capita Halloween spending, typically ranging from $18 to $23 per person. Before you conclude these states just don't care about Halloween, consider the context. Rural states face unique challenges when it comes to Halloween. When your nearest neighbor is a half-mile away, trick-or-treating as we typically imagine it becomes impractical. Many rural families drive their kids to town centers or organize small group celebrations with nearby families. This changes the economics of Halloween. There's less incentive to decorate your farmhouse if only a handful of people will see it. And costume needs can often be met with items already in the closet rather than store-bought outfits. But here's the twist. Lower spending doesn't mean lower enthusiasm. Rural communities often celebrate Halloween with potluck parties, community haunted houses, and local traditions that simply don't require the same retail spending as urban Halloween culture. A Montana ranch hosting a Halloween bonfire for neighboring families might spend $50 on supplies but create a more memorable experience than someone who dropped $500 at Party City. We're learning that Halloween spending is as much about retail infrastructure and convenience as it is about actual enthusiasm for the holiday. Wyoming presents perhaps the most extreme example. With the lowest population density in the nation and a per capita Halloween spending of around $19, Wyoming might seem like a Halloween desert. Yet the state has unique Halloween traditions, including ghost town tours. Wyoming has actual ghost towns from mining and railroad eras, haunted historical sites, and outdoor celebrations that take advantage of the state's dramatic landscapes. You can't buy these experiences at a Spirit Halloween store, so they don't show up in spending data, but they're authentic Halloween experiences nonetheless. And this is where the most interesting part begins when we examine middle ground states, the rise of DIY Halloween culture. States with moderate spending often have the highest rates of homemade costumes, handcrafted decorations, and home-baked treats for parties. Pinterest and TikTok have democratized creative Halloween ideas, allowing people in any state to create impressive celebrations without breaking the bank. A Michigan family might spend $40 on craft supplies and create decorations that rival store-bought items that would cost $200. Have you ever wondered whether higher Halloween spending actually correlates with greater enjoyment of the holiday? The data suggests the relationship is weak at best. Surveys of Halloween satisfaction and enthusiasm show that residents of low-spending states report enjoying Halloween just as much as residents of high-spending states. This suggests that beyond a certain baseline of participation, some candy, a costume, maybe a carved pumpkin, additional spending hits diminishing returns in terms of actual enjoyment. The economic impact of Halloween extends far beyond retail sales, and this becomes especially apparent in middle-spending states. Halloween creates seasonal employment for thousands of Americans: costume store workers, haunted house actors, pumpkin patch employees, and party venue staff. In states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, Halloween contributes significantly to the retail sector's fourth-quarter performance, helping stores maintain profitability during the traditionally slow period between back-to-school season and Black Friday. Regional retailers in middle-spending states have adapted their strategies to maximize Halloween revenue without relying on the extreme spending seen in coastal states. They focus on value-oriented products, family packages, and practical items that serve multiple purposes. A Midwest Halloween store might emphasize decorations that can double as autumn harvest decor, extending their useful life beyond October 31st. This practical approach reflects regional values while still participating in the commercial holiday. Let's address the elephant in the room, or should we say the skeleton in the closet. Income inequality affects Halloween spending patterns within states even more than differences between states. In every state, wealthy families spend multiples more on Halloween than low-income families, but access to Halloween experiences shouldn't depend on household budget. Many communities have recognized this, organizing free Halloween events, costume swaps, and community trick-or-treating events that ensure all children can participate regardless of family finances. Some middle-spending states have actually pioneered inclusive Halloween practices that are now spreading nationally. Community organizations in Ohio and Indiana have created trunk-or-treat events where families decorate car trunks in parking lots, creating safe, accessible trick-or-treating regardless of neighborhood walkability or individual home participation. These events require minimal spending but maximize participation. Everyone with a car and a bag of candy can be part of the celebration. The COVID-19 pandemic permanently altered Halloween spending patterns in ways that disproportionately affected middle-spending states. With traditional trick-or-treating disrupted, families invested in home-based celebrations, elaborate decorations, themed movie nights, and virtual costume parties. Even as in-person celebrations have resumed, some of these pandemic adaptations have stuck, creating new categories of Halloween spending that didn't exist in previous years. The Halloween market has expanded, creating opportunities for spending that don't depend on traditional trick-or-treating infrastructure. So where does this leave us in understanding middle-ground Halloween spending? These states represent the authentic core of American Halloween culture: enthusiastic participation balanced with practical constraints, traditional trick-or-treating combined with creative adaptations, and genuine enjoyment that doesn't require breaking the bank. They prove that Halloween's magic doesn't come from a price tag. It comes from community, creativity, and shared celebration. After diving deep into the numbers, state comparisons, and regional variations, we arrive at the most important question. What does all this Halloween spending actually reveal about American culture and values? Because ultimately, how we spend money on holidays tells us who we are as a society, and Halloween spending patterns paint a surprisingly complex portrait of modern America. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Halloween has become increasingly commercialized, and we're all complicit in it. The holiday that once required little more than a bedsheet ghost costume and homemade popcorn balls now generates more revenue than the entire film industry makes in several months. We've transformed a community celebration into a consumer experience, where participation increasingly depends on retail purchases rather than creativity and neighborly connection. When a family feels they need to spend $300 to properly celebrate Halloween, we've crossed a line from celebration to obligation. But here's the other side of that coin. Halloween spending represents something positive too: investment in joy, community, and shared experience. When your neighbor spends hours setting up an elaborate haunted display for trick-or-treaters, they're not just wasting money on plastic skeletons. They're creating memories for children, building community bonds, and participating in a collective celebration that brings neighborhoods together. That has value that transcends the dollar amount on the receipt. The state-by-state spending variations we've explored reveal deeper truths about American diversity. We're not one homogeneous nation. We're a collection of distinct regional cultures with different values, priorities, and ways of celebrating. The fact that Connecticut residents spend twice as much per capita on Halloween as Mississippi residents doesn't mean one group is right and the other wrong. It means they've made different choices about how to allocate their resources and celebrate their communities. That diversity should be celebrated, not flattened into a single correct way to do Halloween. Have you ever wondered what future generations will think when they look back at our Halloween spending habits? They might see our multi-billion-dollar Halloween economy as wasteful excess, or they might see it as a charming commitment to celebration and community in an increasingly disconnected world. The answer probably depends on what happens to our culture in the coming decades, whether we continue down the path of increasing commercialization or find our way back to more balanced, community-centered celebrations. The economic inequality embedded in Halloween spending should concern us. When high-income families can spend $500 on Halloween while low-income families struggle to afford basic costumes and candy, we're creating holiday experiences that reinforce class divisions. Children notice these differences. The kid whose parents can afford an elaborate store-bought costume gets treated differently at school costume contests than the kid in a homemade outfit. Halloween should unite communities, not highlight economic disparities. Yet our current spending patterns often do exactly that. But wait, there are solutions emerging. The rise of costume swaps, community events, and inclusive celebrations shows that Americans are increasingly aware of these inequities and working to address them. Many schools have moved away from costume contests that reward expensive outfits, instead emphasizing creativity and effort regardless of budget. Community organizations provide free Halloween events where participation doesn't require any spending at all. These developments suggest that while Halloween has become highly commercialized, there's a counter-movement working to preserve its community-centered roots. What if I told you that Halloween spending might actually be good for the economy in ways we don't fully appreciate? The Halloween industry supports hundreds of thousands of jobs, from costume designers to seasonal retail workers to pumpkin farmers. For many small businesses, Halloween provides crucial fourth-quarter revenue that keeps them afloat through slower winter months. That $12 billion Americans spend on Halloween doesn't disappear. It circulates through the economy, supporting workers and businesses across multiple industries. The environmental impact of Halloween spending is another aspect we can't ignore. Americans throw away approximately 2,000 tons of Halloween costumes each year, most made from non-recyclable synthetic materials. Single-use decorations, excessive packaging, and throwaway culture have made Halloween increasingly unsustainable. Some states and communities are beginning to address this, promoting reusable decorations, costume sharing, and sustainable celebration practices. As climate concerns intensify, we'll likely see Halloween spending patterns shift toward more durable, reusable, and environmentally friendly products. Looking ahead, what does the future hold for Halloween spending? Several trends are already emerging that will shape the holiday in coming years. First, Halloween is becoming increasingly adult-oriented, with grown-ups spending as much or more on costumes and parties as parents spend on their children. This represents a fundamental shift in the holiday's character, from child-centered trick-or-treating to multi-generational celebration. We can expect this trend to continue, with adult Halloween spending potentially surpassing children's spending within the next decade. Second, Experience-based Halloween spending is growing faster than product-based spending. Americans are increasingly willing to pay for haunted attractions, themed parties, escape rooms, and other Halloween experiences rather than just buying decorations and costumes. This shift from goods to experiences mirrors broader consumer trends and could ultimately reduce the environmental impact of Halloween while increasing total spending. A $60 ticket to a haunted attraction creates memories and supports local entertainment businesses without adding to landfills. Third, technology is transforming Halloween in ways that will impact spending patterns. Augmented reality costumes, app-based trick-or-treating games, and high-tech decorations are creating new categories of Halloween spending that didn't exist a decade ago. Some neighborhoods now coordinate elaborate synchronized light shows using smart home technology, creating displays that would have been impossible without recent technological advances. As technology becomes more accessible, these high-tech Halloween celebrations will likely spread beyond wealthy early adopters to mainstream consumers. The regional differences in Halloween spending we've explored throughout this video likely won't disappear, but they may shift in unexpected ways. As remote work allows people to live anywhere, we might see Halloween culture from high-spending states transplanted to lower-spending regions. A family that moves from New Jersey to Montana might bring their elaborate Halloween traditions with them, gradually influencing local celebration norms. Over time, this cultural mixing could reduce regional spending disparities, or it could intensify them if different cultures dig in and resist homogenization. So what should we make of all this? How should we think about Halloween spending in our own lives and communities? Here's the conclusion I've reached after examining all this data. Halloween spending isn't inherently good or bad. It's just a reflection of our values and priorities. If spending money on Halloween brings you genuine joy, strengthens your community bonds, and fits within your budget, then it's money well spent. But if you're spending on Halloween out of obligation, competition, or social pressure, it's worth stepping back and reconsidering what the holiday really means to you. The most successful Halloween celebrations, measured not in dollars but in genuine enjoyment and community impact, often combine purchased elements with creativity, personal effort, and authentic connection. Maybe that means buying a few key decorations but making others yourself. Maybe it means investing in one great costume you'll wear multiple times instead of disposable outfits. Maybe it means spending less on stuff and more on experiences, or contributing to community events that include everyone regardless of budget. What really matters isn't how much you spend on Halloween compared to your neighbor or compared to the national average. What matters is whether your Halloween celebration reflects your values, brings joy to yourself and others, and contributes positively to your community. Some of the best Halloween memories cost almost nothing. Carving pumpkins with family, seeing children's faces light up when they receive candy, neighbors coming together to create something magical for one special night. The $12 billion question isn't really how much do Americans spend on Halloween. It's what are we getting for that spending, and is it worth it? Each of us has to answer that question individually based on our own circumstances, values, and priorities. But by understanding the broader patterns, which states spend what, why spending varies, and what drives Halloween economics, we're better equipped to make intentional choices about our own participation in this increasingly elaborate holiday. As we wrap up this deep dive into American Halloween spending, here's my challenge to you. This Halloween, pay attention to what truly brings you joy about the holiday. Is it the expensive decorations or the time spent putting them up with family? Is it the store-bought costume or the creativity involved in putting together an outfit? Is it the quantity of candy you distribute or the interactions with trick-or-treaters at your door? By focusing on what actually matters, you might find that the most meaningful Halloween experiences don't require the biggest budget. Halloween spending will continue to grow. That's the trend line, and there's little reason to expect it to reverse. But within that growth, there's room for individual choice, community innovation, and values-driven celebration. Whether you live in high-spending Connecticut or budget-conscious Wyoming, you can create a Halloween experience that's meaningful, memorable, and authentic to your community and values. And maybe, just maybe, that's worth more than any amount we could spend at Spirit Halloween.